viewed deals, closed deals. There's no magic formula or ratio. If you think you should have landed a deal by now, listen to this episode. Deals, deals, deals.
So many deals.
And some of them work.
And some of them don't.
Most of them don't.
Most of them don't. Like 80%, 80 to 90% don't.
Yeah. I would say when I'm talking to a newer investor, the big thing that I try to get into is like, you got to be patient.
Yeah.
Like one is figuring out what is a good deal in your eyes. So kind of figuring out your system and your moving parts and like, are you an investor that only will allow for a perfect BRRRR? Meaning that you're going to take down a property, it needs rehab, you're going to bring some money to closing, but then when you do your refi out, you want 100% of your money back. Please don't be. I mean, you could be that person, but you're going to need a lot of patience. Because I would say we do maybe one of those a month.
Perfect BRRRR?
A perfect BRRRR. Maybe one or
I was gonna
every
say
other.
one. I was going to say one a year.
Oh, no. I definitely think we hit more than one a year.
I saw one last year, and it was in a tiny little town in Ohio.
I had probably 2 or 3 last year.
Okay. So as
a company, we probably have one a quarter.
A quarter. Yeah.
Every other month. Anyway,
and we do how many deals a month? Like 80 to 100?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's putting in perspective, like, if that is what your structure is, we're not stopping you from keeping that structure, because I think that is for your risk tolerance. Yeah, that's your risk tolerance. That's what you're comfortable with. We support it. The patience and the amount of deals you're going to have to evaluate is a lot. Because let me kind of explain why. If a deal is that good, a lot of people are looking at it and are probably also saying, hey, this is a really good deal. I also want to take it down. And so one, figuring out your structure, and then 2, finding that structure out in the market. Wholesalers, we love you. You're incredible. You continue to make this world function. But you guys are sometimes ambitious. Ambitious.
I thought you were going to say something that would...
Oh, I wouldn't be mean. No mean. But ambitious. And so we always tell clients, like, hey, just double check your numbers. And, like, you likely know the neighborhood better than anybody else, even the wholesaler, because wholesalers can work anywhere, nearly. And so they may not even be super familiar with the market and how this neighborhood on this side of the street is different from that neighborhood on the other side of the street. But I would say the challenge that people are running into right now is just like finding the right deal.
Yeah. I think that is by far the biggest challenge. I mean, I've talked to a number of people and they're just like, why are these numbers not working? And I'm like, well, it's fluctuations in the market, right? Yeah. So because you're not just competing with, for the most part, you're not just competing with other investors. You're also competing with home buyers that want to live in the house.
Yeah.
And so those values, I mean, all the values in the 1 to 4 family space are going to be driven by sales comps.
Yep.
But just because sales comps increase doesn't mean that area rents increase.
Yep.
And ultimately, it's area rents that are going to determine whether or not the deal works for you as a BRRRR, as a long-term investment.
Yeah. I think there's so many moving parts to kind of be mindful and really figuring out as many lead sources as possible. So cool. You're on investor lift and you're looking at those deals. Cool. Are you also on buyers lists? Are you contacting wholesalers directly and be like, hey, tell me when you have deals coming around? Are you going to real estate events like Coin here in Columbus, third Tuesday of the month?
Third Tuesday of the month.
Are you going to those events and speaking with other investors in the area of deals that they have on the pipeline? Are you going to the MLS? As crazy as it sounds, I've heard more and more about the MLS being a wonderful resource for deals as well. But I think you have to have as many lead sources as possible, and also, again, just gain the patience to keep running those numbers, and wait. Please, God, wait for the deal that actually hits your parameters.
Yeah. And I mean, I think there's a couple things going on right now. Now, Columbus, I was reading an article in Columbus First, and it said that Columbus wasn't particularly hit by the recent pullback in the market. But there are a lot of markets around the country that have seen a decline in sales and an increase in supply, a decrease in pricing. So now's the time. Like, when nobody wants to go and invest is usually the best time to go and invest and find those deals that can work.
Well, and I think it's also just putting the deal in. I mean, we're salespeople, so we're, totally fine taking a no. That's not going to bother me whatsoever. It honestly just means I need to adapt potentially to get you something that really makes sense for what you're looking for. You need to be the same way. You need to be adaptable. You need to be willing to say, if I buy this thing for 75 grand, the deal makes sense. Submit the offer. You'd be surprised the circumstance that the seller is in, who also may be an investor or wholesaler who's willing to make 5 grand rather than 15 grand. Like, just submit the offer. What's the worst thing they're going to do? Come back and say, no, thank you. I don't like your offer. And you move on. You'd be surprised. Those people tend to come trickling back. We have on our pipeline that we manage all your guys' transactions on, we have a category that's called RIP. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
But to be honest, it's in its own category for a reason. It's because we have zombie deals.
We do.
All the time. They come
sometimes
back to life.
They get resurrected, yeah.
Frequently. Enough that we have a category that is so separate so that if a deal comes back to life, we have it easily grabbable, bring it back on, and it's like it never disappeared.
Yeah.
But it's because deals do come back to life very, very often. So it's just staying tried and true on the numbers that you need to make a deal work, and keep running those numbers, keep evaluating those deals, change markets, change locations, be willing to, be willing to consider higher rehabs if that's in your risk tolerance. Because I will say there's some really great deals if the rehab's a little bit more, but that's not in everyone's purview, or they may not have a contractor that can really service a rehab that large. Is there any other ideas of like trying to find?
I mean, but you nailed it right on the head there. I think sometimes people think, especially when they're newer, they're like, oh, I'm just going to go get something that's on the MLS and then I'm going to rent it out and I'm going to make some money. And the challenge with that is you spend a bunch of capital and the return is a slow trickle over time.
Yeah.
So if you're out of pocket, $50,000 or $100,000 to buy that big beautiful house in an A-class neighborhood, and the rent barely covers the mortgage payment, and you're only making $100, $200 a month. Okay, you're out the 50 grand, and now you're only making $200 a month. I mean, how many times can you do that? And then you're banking on appreciation at that point. Now, I do have some wealthy. I mean, there is something to be said for that. I do have some wealthy individuals that do that. They'll buy beautiful homes in A-class neighborhoods, and the cash flow just isn't there. Yeah. But also, they're not relying on it for cash flow. No. They're betting that, okay, this area is going to continue to appreciate, and that house is really for their kids to go and sell long term.
Yeah. So it's fine-tuning that process. As we've said numerous times, like, you're going to have to adapt with the market. You're going to have to adjust. Again, if this was easy for everyone would be doing it. This is not the case. Really figure out what makes sense for you as an investor, which is different for every person that we work with, and hold true.
Something to really think about is look, you're going to go through a million deals before you find one that works. Then you're going to bring it to us. Then we're going to run our numbers and see how that looks, and it still might not work. I mean, because if we talked, let's say 60 days ago, and 60 days ago rates were XYZ, and now they're XYZ plus 1, then all of a sudden those numbers might not work, and that could be a challenge. So I mean, I guess you just got to be prepared for that fluctuation in the market.
And I don't know that there's an exact percentage. I would say, do I want to say 50-50, 60-40? We say yes, maybe. I would have to be a lot more mindful of that yes or no kind of scenario. But the great thing is like, we're going to do that evaluation.
Yeah.
And then we're going to be confident enough to say, this deal is not for you. I think there's plenty of loan officers that's like, you brought me a deal, let's do the deal.
Yeah.
And they're not going to do that protective mechanism that here at LFG we 100% do of, hey, wait a second. This isn't penciling out. This isn't penciling out. Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
We will always have that conversation with you.
Sure.
And say, I'd rather say no to this deal than yes, you lose money on this deal and you never invest ever again.
Yeah.
And so we very much have that focus to ensure that not only have you done your evaluation, we've done our evaluation, then the lender's going to do their evaluation, then we're going to close. The hope is that protects you as much as humanly possible.
Absolutely. The way that we make money is by you making money. So if you don't make any money, then it's going to be a one and done, and then we're not going to have any clients eventually. So yeah, we're looking for long-term relationships, that repeat business, so that everybody can grow and become wealthy.
Hell yeah.